So God doesn't command us to do things that we do naturally. You ever notice that? He doesn't command us to do things that we do naturally. So his command and his word for us this morning, as we get into the book of James, we're going to look at it this week and next week. But the command and word this morning is real simple. Listen. Got that? Listen. That's it. The word is listen. And like I said, he doesn't command us to do things that we do naturally. Many of us are not natural, generally speaking. Many of us are not natural listeners. Anybody know anyone that is an overtalker? Anybody know any overtalkers? Yeah. Anybody? Is there anybody who is willing to admit? Yeah, I got. Yeah, that's me. I am that person. Anybody a recovering or currently going through active recovery from being an overtalker? Yeah, that's me, man. Dude, that is me. Yeah. No. Thank you, Dave. No, I'm not. And let me tell you about it. Yeah, man, that's me. That's me. Listening is a learned behavior. When I probably first year of marriage, my wife and I were having a spirited conversation, okay? And it was at night, and the next day, I don't know I'm taking some poetic justice, but I imagine the next morning, my wife was doing some processing, and for whatever reason that morning, she chose to drink tea instead of coffee. Maybe an intentional move to like settle her soul a little bit coming off the night before. Do you know where I'm going with this? Oh, okay. So she chooses to drink tea instead of coffee that morning, and I'm picturing her with the sun coming through the patio doors at the little coffee and tea sitting area we had in our place at the time. And I imagine her like trying to settle herself and, taking the tea out and waiting for the water to boil and sitting there at the table, legs crossed, stirring, doing this with the tea. And then I imagine something striking her at some point, perhaps the Lord speaking to her. And I think what she did was just, if I can get this off, pluck this off. And I think she just kind of sat there staring at the tea tag for a while. And so not long after that, I come downstairs and I'm in the kitchen and I'm getting my coffee, and she says, "Hey, sit down. I need to tell you something." So I sit down and I said, "What's up?" And with one finger, she slides that tea bag tag across the table to me. And I believe the brand is Yogi, that has, this is First Street, I just got this from out there. The Yogi has little quotes on the tag, and this particular tag said, "By listening, we comfort another person." And so I sat down. She told me she had something to tell me, and those words on that tea tag spoke loud and clear. that clearly the night before I had not been listening very well at all. I was not hearing her. I was not understanding her. I was not getting her perspective. I was not putting myself in her shoes. I was not listening. Now, you probably heard me say this before, but Bert, our therapist, man, he tells us everything in life is learned. So here's the good news. Listening is a learned behavior. And I have learned and continue to exercise how to be a better listener. It's through listening that we create a safe relational environment. That same year, or maybe it was the next year, I always go with a theme for the year, right? And so like this year is faith and works. That's my theme for the year. So that same year that we had that conversation, or coming on the foothills of that conversation, I decided that listening was going to be my word for the year. And so that very next year, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to be a listener. I'm going to grow in this way. The year after that, it was actually, the word was present. So I learned to take another step from being a listener to being present, practice being present in any moment and situation. But spare you that. So I spent a whole year practicing, learning to be a listener, because it was flat out not something that came natural to me. And so our word for today is just flat out listen. Got it? We're going to go to the book of James today. Let me give you a little background on James. Let's talk about who James is, and then let's talk about the book, the letter from James. James is Jesus's brother. The other day, Quincy went with Legacy Family Church is a church that uses our facilities a couple times a week, and he was here with me on Wednesday for something, so he went and hung out with them, and then afterwards, the leader, I believe it was Romeo, he comes and says, "Hey, your son was really sweet. I was thinking about what are we going to talk to the kids about tonight," because Quincy was hanging out with the kids group, and he said, I think I'm going to talk about Joseph. Let's talk about Joseph in the Bible. And he said, who knows who Joseph is in the Bible? And my son's hand shot up. He said, I know who Joseph is. He said, great, tell us who Joseph is. He says, that's Jesus' dad. Right? Nailed it. Got it right. That's true. It is. My man was like, you got me. That's absolutely right. That is who Joseph is. He was talking about the Joseph from the Old Testament, right? One of the patriarchs. He was talking about a different Joseph in the Bible, and so then they learned about that. But so Jesus had a dad or a half-dad, right? Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. Think about the nativity story. But Jesus actually had other brothers. And so James, or quite possibly Jacob, might have been his original name, probably was his original name. We won't get into all that. Anyway, James. We're going to call him James. For today, it's just James. So James was one of Jesus's half-brothers. And can you imagine growing up with Jesus as you're the firstborn, the oldest, the big bro? That's got to be hard, right? Well, there's a story that some of you guys probably know that I was thinking about. I was just imagining James as Jesus's brother. And there's a story where Jesus was in a home teaching, healing, tons of crowds coming, and his family shows up and they want to get into that home. And they're like, hey, Jesus, your mom's here, your brothers and sisters are here. Like, they're trying to get in. And Jesus looks at everybody with him and he says, look, man, who is my mom and my brother and my sister? He says, those who do the will of my Father, those who do the will of God, those people are my brothers and sisters and mother. Now think about this. Like even that passage, that idea alone always challenges me. Like Jesus looked at the people who were following him and doing the will of God, doing the will of the Father. He looked at them as family. Like that's the space that I want to be in with Jesus following people. Like, yo, that's fam. But we cheapen it. We say, we show up at church and we say, hey, brother. Hey, Anthony. Hey, brother. Hey, sister, with a side hug. Let's keep it real, man. Like, we're a ways away, I think, from what Jesus really had in mind when he talked about, like, this being fam. And I think the tool for listening today, the mandate and the command, is a really important step for us to get there, to be that type of people group with that type of relationship. And my guess is James was just, I think he really took that to heart. What Jesus, he was like, dang, I can't even be close to you. I can't even get in your space. We're bros. I can't even get in your space. But my guess is James didn't take offense to that. He learned from that. And he became a Jesus-like person and a doer of God's will. James actually became a leader in the church in Jerusalem. So what happened is, after Jesus was crucified, there was persecution that happened in the holy city of Jerusalem. And the church was growing. It was going great. You can read about this in the book of Acts. The church was going great. And then God allowed persecution to come so that all these comfortable Christians, all these comfortable Jewish believers, these new Christians that were getting really happy and comfortable in their holy city, there was persecution that came and forced them to disperse across the land to a whole bunch of different cities. But James actually stayed back, and he was like the respected leader. I mean, he was Jesus' brother, and he's a leader in the church now. Like he was highly respected, and he stayed back in the church. And so then this letter is the letter that he writes to be dispersed to all of the dispersed believers. It's actually called the diaspora, okay? So all the dispersed believers, he writes this letter to be shared with everybody. It's like, they didn't have mass email blast back then, but that's what this was. I'm going to write this letter. I'm going to send it to everyone. And James is not a linear type of letter, and it's not written to any specific culture or any specific town or any specific church and any problem that's going on there. It's actually like the Proverbs of the New Testament. Okay, it's got a bunch of different wisdoms and truths and ideas that are super applicable to everyday life. And so the first chapter is really kind of an intro, and it starts off and it says, hey, I'm writing to the 12 tribes scattered among the nations. He's writing to the dispersed people group that are scattered all around in these different cities and areas. And the first chapter is really kind of an introduction to some of the themes and ideas that are kind of poetically sprinkled into the rest of the book. Okay, so he talks about the maturity that comes through persevering in trials. He talks about taking ownership of your life and not putting the blame on God for the hard things that you're dealing with or the temptation that comes your way. And when I was looking at this morning, it reminded me of my favorite definition of a mature adult. You've probably heard me say it before, but a mature adult is somebody who is anti-victim, anti-blame, and takes full ownership of their lives. You got that? Anti-victim. It's not about what happened to me, okay? I'm not playing the victim and not taking ownership of my life. Anti-blame is no one else's fault. Yes, I get it. This is happening to you. Yes, I get it. You're in a hard situation. Yes, I get it. You went through persecution and you're not living in the area that you want to. And I get it that you're removed from your comfort zone. But God is Lord over all that. I get it. We're not going to be a victim. We're not going to blame everyone else. We're going to take ownership. And so these principles that James is talking about in this book of wisdom, this letter of wisdom, is all about the Christian people that have been dispersed amongst their community, taking ownership and being mature, Jesus-like people who are representing him to the world. And so one of the ideas that he puts in this book of wisdom is, if you're going to be out there as mature people, I need you to be a listener. Got it? So let's go to James 1, verse 19. We're going to read through to 25. James 1, verse 19. I think I'm going to stop at 21 and then pick back up and finish it in a minute. It says, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Remember, God doesn't command us to do things we do naturally. How do you feel when you're around an overtalker? I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. I feel like somebody is hijacking my time. I feel like someone does not have my best interest at heart. They're only caught up in themselves, right? I tend to see a lot of insecurity from the over talker and discomfort. And now I don't say that to just like, man, going hard on the over talker. It's like, no, I get it, right? But I know, because that's when I'm over talking, it's usually because I'm in a really insecure, fearful place. Don't know what to do. As people who are supposed to be Jesus-loving, following, matured people sent out into dispersed amongst society to represent him, we have to grow out of that place. We have to be great listeners. Over the last few weeks, talking about Hebrews, I was just talking to somebody who was saying, man, calling and praying for people has been great. I've really seen God move through that. It's really blessing people. Being an encouragement. We've talked about praying for people, being an encouragement. We've talked about being accountable, right? All of this flows really well into what James is talking about. Like this is the type of matured in Jesus person that we are to be if we're going to go out into society. And so we've been using this word safe space. We are called to be a safe relational space. And the way we do that is by being great listeners. Not people who are quick to speak and quick to become angry. People who are slow to speak, slow to become angry, slow to be defensive, and just quick to listen and receive. Okay? Imagine if you were or are, have been the overtalker and there's a shift. I wonder what your relationships, wonder what would happen in your relationships if you were to begin to be somebody who now is secure in who they are and in the Lord, not fearful, but just embracing the exploration of life and the moment that Jesus has you in, and you settle in and you are comfortable and secure in Him, and you just say, you know, I'm not going to talk from my unawareness. I'm going to have self-awareness. I'm just going to listen. What are some tools for being a great listener? What are some key components for being a great listener? Relax. Hey, breathe. Yeah, good. Self-control. Good. Be in the moment, be present. Boom. 2 people said it. Curiosity. Oh, yeah, let me listen to understand. Yeah, tell me about that. How are you feeling? Where did that come from? Wow, I don't think I'm quite understanding that. Can you be a little more clear? What else? Oh my gosh, not thinking about what I'm about to say. Yeah, somebody else said something over here. Eye contact? Yeah. That physical posture, body language is really important. Yeah. And if the point is to create safe relational environment where now you're a trusted, I was up later than I wanted to be last night because I ended up going for a walk, met some cool guys, and surprise, surprise, enjoyed, there was an event going on at Brooke and Sophia and Olivia's school. And so, I just wandered over, being nosy. And as I'm leaving, I started just a short conversation, about an hour or so, with some new friends that I met, right? And here's the crazy thing. No, I was not over talking, and no, I wouldn't call them over talkers. It was just conversation. But I texted my wife and said, look, I'm talking with people about Jesus. We started shopping life, got to know each other, and then started talking about Jesus. And I wouldn't put these guys in the believer category. And here's the crazy thing. We were talking about Jesus, but I wasn't doing a lot of the talking. I was doing very little of the talking. But Jesus was definitely present. Jesus was definitely moving in the conversation. And I don't think I answered one question. I don't think I referenced one scripture. I don't think I definitely didn't stand on one idea or soapbox of dogmatic theology, right? I didn't condemn anyone. I just was with these guys where the Spirit of the Lord had me, and I was present with them, and I listened. Now, praise God, that's learned behavior. Because I used to think, oh my gosh, we're talking about Jesus. I got to have all the answers. I need to, he said something that I don't align with, so I've got to. No, man, I was just with these guys. And you know what happened is these guys, I walked away from the conversation, and this is the goal, y'all. This is the goal. I walked away from the conversation, and I know that neither one of these guys said to themselves or thought, man, I would never talk with that guy about that again. We've been talking about being a safe space. We've been talking about having accountability. We've been talking about encouraging people and praying for each other and having these hard conversations. And if people can be most comfortable with uncomfortable topics with you, that's a win, dude. If people can be comfortable in the relational space with you, dealing with hot topics and talking about Jesus, that is a win. We want people taking steps closer to us, not pushing us away. We don't want anybody. I've begun to live by this in my household. When we talk about hot topic conversations with my kids, I don't want anybody walking away from my presence saying, "Never talking about that with that guy again." Yikes. Especially my kids. I want them to feel so safe and heard and understood that they're willing to continue the conversation. Is that clear? Steps closer to the crowd of Jesus, steps closer to Jesus, steps closer to the people of Jesus. No one, hey man, they just listen too much, said no one ever. They're just too good of listeners. Driving me nuts the way they listen to me. Right? JD, Stacy, you guys mind doing an illustration? Do you hate me right now? No? Love you guys. I knew you'd hold it down. Come on up. Let's use the microphone. Can we get these on? They're on. Sweet. Come on up. Yeah. JD, Stacy, Ippoliti, everyone. They have a healthy, wonderful marriage. They're beautiful. Yeah. You're welcome. Sorry, not sorry for that. Okay, you're going to stand here. You're going to stand over here. Okay? And we're gonna do a fun little activity. Sound good?
Sure.
Cool. What's this I'm holding in my hand? It's a book. You got to say it into the mic. So
Sorry,
it's
book.
really not for the people here. It's more for people online. We want people online to have a really good technological experience. So just yeah. So what do you see?
Book.
A book. Great. What do you see?
Book.
Great. Wow. See, marital bliss. You guys have agreed
Yes.
that this is a book. Let's pretend that this book is a circumstance, a relational circumstance that might cause spirited conversation amongst the two of you. Okay? Does that ever happen in your household, in your marriage?
Oh, yes.
Never.
What she said.
I love it. I knew you guys would be great at this. JD,
Yes.
what do you see on this book? When you look at this book, what do you see?
An individual.
Okay, you see an individual. What else do you see?
Words.
What do those words say?
Practicing the way.
Practicing the way. Cool. Anything else?
Be with Jesus. Become like him. Do as he did.
It's great. Wow. Awesome. Seems like you're seeing that very clearly. So you see an individual.
Yes.
All right. Cool. And those words that you just read. Ma'am, what do you see when you look at this book?
Words.
Okay, cool. Oh, we're doing good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, what words do you see?
Jesus.
Okay, cool. Jesus, yep. What else do you see?
The world.
Yeah. Ooh. So what he's describing, does it sound a little different than what you're seeing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you guys are both looking at a book.
Right.
Yeah. So is he crazy or are you crazy?
He's crazy.
It's
Yeah, for sure. Because I'm looking at the same thing you look. I don't see an individual.
No.
I don't see practicing the way. What else do you see?
Lots of words.
Lots of words.
Yeah.
He gave like 4 or 5 words.
Yeah.
You see lots
And
of
I
words.
don't
It's
see
a
a
lot more
person.
details. There's no individual.
No.
There's no person.
There's no pictures.
There's no pictures.
Mm-mm.
There's a barcode. There's
Yeah.
a price. There's some numbers. Yeah. Wow. What would you need to do, JD, in order to understand what she sees?
Get her perspective.
How do you do that?
Try and stand in her shoes.
Oh, and what do you need to do to proverbially, if I'm saying that right, get in her shoes?
I need to understand where she's at.
Yeah, and in this situation, you can either listen really clearly and try and block out what you see, forget what you see, or you can literally go over and stand in her shoes, because you guys aren't enemies, right?
Not right now.
No. You're not playing tennis against each other. Well, I see this. Well, I see this. Well, I see this. Well, I see this. Well, who's right? Who's right? You're wrong. You're wrong. You got to go be on the same side as her. Go ahead.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah. And now, when you position yourself as a team, looking at a problem, rather than looking at each other like you're the problem with the real problem in the middle, and you approach it together, you'll finally see things clearly because you now are getting the same perspective, understanding, put yourself in her shoes, right?
I'm right.
And of course, well,
I'm right.
it is an illustration, but it was very intentional and strategic on my end of things to make sure that the truth that you were right was expressed. Okay, well done. Make some noise for them. All right. Listen, y'all. And then James says, hey, when you go to church and you get around, because man, this is great. You guys know they didn't have Bibles back then, right? You guys know that? So they had to come together as a community to be around the people who have memorized the scriptures or be in their homes with the people who knew the scriptures really well, and they would share them audibly, and they would go to synagogue, the gathering place, and they would share the scriptures audibly, and so they would sit there, and how would they get the word of God? They had to. So he says, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror, and after looking at himself, goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. Now, James is talking about looking in a mirror. If you look in a mirror and you see something in your teeth, or you see a bump, a pimple, zit, blemish, hair, right? Not like, yeah. If you see any of those things and you don't do something about it, that's weird, right? We are listening to the Word of God so that He can reveal and so that He can mature. That's the purpose, it's transformation. But if we don't settle the waters of our soul in conversation with each other, and we don't start with doing that with, like, if your time with God looks like those first two types of prayer that I mentioned earlier when we did our prayer exercise, and it doesn't look like listening and just flat out being with and embracing the safe space that God is, then how can I learn to become a safe space? One of my students this week said, you can't look at your face in the reflection of boiling water. Why is that? Those waters aren't still. Not only that, but if you get too close to those waters, it's going to get hot and burn you, right? Anger does not bring about the righteousness of God. We have to allow the waters of our souls to settle. We have to allow the waters of others' souls to settle. And the best way to do that is by being patient and listening and allowing that to happen. So that goes for a relationship with back and forth with the book. That also goes for our relationship with God. Settle in, learn to be quiet and present, and listen with Him, so then you can learn to be a settled person in the presence of others and settle in and listen to them and become that safe relational space. Would you agree that this world needs more people like that? Who are settled in spirit, confident in who they are in Jesus, have experienced safe relationship in Jesus, that we don't walk out the house boiling already, right? So that we can go be that safe person to others. You guys would agree that this world needs more people like that? Awesome. Then let me look at my notes and see if there's anything else that I wanted to say that I forgot about. No, I think we're good. So my challenge to you guys is this. Yes, be great listeners. Learn to be great listeners this week. But start practicing that by just taking at least 1 minute every single day. Let's end it the way we started, shall we?